The Ark the Lad series was produced in Japan by Sony's Ark Entertainment subsidiary. I personally think that the base of RPG game elements are story, characters, and how well they are crafted and how interesting they are. So we need to make sure that those things are done right. Otherwise, even if the hardware improves, the game itself might not improve drastically.
Ark the Lad 3 was released in Japan in 1999, but in America as a part of the Ark the Lad collection in 2002.
I believe I took on Ark Collection because I had a temporary bout of insanity.
Working Designs had approached Sony about producing a US version of Ark 1 soon after the game was released in Japan. They asked again after the debut of Ark 2. And when Ark 3 was released, they came up with a bold idea.
We approached it as doing all 3 games together in one exclusive box set. And when we approached it that way with Sony of Japan, they were interested in talking to us and licensing the game to us.
The gameplay in Ark the Lad 3 remains mostly unchanged. The big difference between this game and the second is that instead of capturing monsters and using them in battle as party members, you can capture them in cards and use them as one-time summons. Then there's the ability to synthesize items and weapons. Not exactly the most revolutionary thing to add to an RPG, but it's not bad. I guess my main complaint with the combat is that it's not challenging in the least. Neither were the other games until the last boss of Ark the Lad 2, but that was challenging in the most asshole-ish, annoying way possible. This game did start off difficult enough that I had to grind for a good 30 minutes before being able to take on the monsters in the first dungeon. After that, though, the combat was a breeze. I think the main thing is the AI in the Ark the Lad games leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, 90% of the bosses play out the same way. It's big, it's back against a wall, and it doesn't move. I mean, come on guys. Not every enemy encounter can change my life, but at least make the bosses exciting. If I had to pinpoint the main problem with all these Ark games, now that I've played all of them, the battles aren't fun. And since that's the meat of any tactical RPG, that's a pretty big problem. I prefer the 3D look of the third Ark the Lad game more than the previous 2. That said, it might have more to do with the fact that I'm playing these games through a PS3, which upscales it, and to get through the PS3's anti-piracy protection, I also have to pass it through another upscaler. This last game has the least graphical interference from this process, so the previous 2 games may look better on your setups. But aside from that issue, I think having 2 more years of experience made this game look much more polished than the last 2. The CG, while still laughable by today's standards, at least has some character to it. Literally, the characters actually appearing instead of, just vehicles and buildings.
From the beginning, Akagawa-san's idea, the producer's idea, was to do cutting-edge RPG, to show off cutting-edge technology. And at the time Ark 1 came out, CG was just getting started. Then Ark 2 really takes CG and runs with it, and you can see, how they're starting to model. It was pretty spectacular for the time. And then Ark 3 comes along, and that's another 2 years later, and you can see the evolution of the graphics as well there, where the 3D CG is just really, really great.
In Ark 1 and 2, they primarily used CG for, the flying ships and stuff like that, but the characters were never done in 3D. But in Ark 3, they incorporated more of the 3D character design.
The story in Ark the Lad 3 is a nice, drastic change from the first 2. The first game's story was very stereotypical video game. Gather the 5 elements, and then beat the last boss. The second game tried something grander, doubled the cast, started strong, but lacked any ideas to keep that initial momentum going.
Ark 1 advances with the main story alone. It is not a very long game. From Ark 2, the style changes a little bit, and besides the main story, there is also a sub-story called Guild Work. For Ark 3, we put that Guild Work, which was the subsystem in Ark 2, as the main storyline in Ark 3. By accepting the guild work, it causes the main story to develop.
This third game starts a few years after the second game and the world-altering event that ends that previous game. You play as Alec, an orphan saved by an unknown hunter on his quest to become a hunter and explore the world. The game doesn't suffocate you with the story. The story in Archlad 3 is almost too loose for its own good, but I like that. It develops naturally. You can't say exactly where it's going until about halfway. There's successful use of foreshadowing, there's cameos from every major character from the previous games done well, and there's enough mystery with Alec's hunter savior to subtly push you forward without hammering you over the head with a contrived story. But, as with Archlad 2, this game does lose steam a little more than halfway through the story. Once the villain's motivations are revealed and the rest of the game is laid out, it becomes just like the last two games. At least they let me think for about 20 hours that the story could have developed into something interesting. I'm sure it's been said before, but a great story needs a great villain, and this game does not have one. The music in ATL 3 is better than the previous games, but still not great as a whole. A few tracks stick out as memorable, and this time there's an actually exciting battle theme. Is this game and the Ark collection as a whole worth your time? That's a tough call. If you're really hankering for a 100-hour tactical RPG experience that is cohesive story-wise, technically, but hasn't aged too well on the gameplay front, you could do worse than ATL. The first game is a lot of fun, and short, and I recommend it easily. It's the second part that sours me on the whole. The third redeemed the collection for me, but when I think about it critically, I think I really just like the third game because it wasn't the second game.
I really like the beginning of Ark 2 when you see it pan over and everybody gets shot. That was just really cool. A lot of death, a lot of blood, a lot of people getting crushed. I like the one scene where the guy gets slammed against the wall and turns into slime. That was really cool.